Good morning, friends. I hope this finds you healthy, happy, excited, giddy. We're at a hump day, and that's always positive. Everybody gets excited for the middle of the week because it brings the weekend a little closer. I think I spoke yesterday briefly about how I sat up from my chair and threw out my back, and that has become probably like the worst back event I've had that I can remember. I'm sure early on I've had worse, but this one's pretty brutal, man. It left me on the couch most of yesterday, so that sucks. But we're plowing through it, and we're here, and today we're talking about step 3. Some of the talking points I made are pretty, I think they're pretty imperative. When we look back, we think step 1 and step 2. These are both steps where we're called upon to be reflective and accepting. There are steps where we consider our situation, we consider what brought us to the doors of Alcoholics Anonymous. We certainly have to be reflective, personally reflective on our own situation and our own actions. And then we're called upon to consider acceptance. So reflective and accepting are steps 1 and 2, certainly. We absolutely have a problem. Our lives are completely unmanageable and beyond our control, and we need help with that, obviously. And we have to accept and consider that there is a power somewhere greater than ourselves, quite possibly just the group of Alcoholics Anonymous itself, that is bigger, better, and more powerful than us, that can provide answers and help to overcome that problem. Those are reflective ideas that we are tasked to consider and eventually accept. Step 3 is action, as are the remaining steps. 3 through 12 are recurring moments of affirmative action in our lives. And step 3 reads, if I may, made a decision to turn our will and our lives over to the care of God as we understood Him. Once again, I mean, any new beginner walking in the doors, looking at this stuff, is going to be completely overwhelmed. How do you turn your will and your life over to the care of, in many cases, a deity that most of these people wouldn't even consider? It's an impossible task, to be sure, for most of the beginners walking in the door, sitting at that table, broken and busted. But what we should consider here is that, much like step 2, in step 2, Bill writes that he himself, at the time of writing, 18 years on, looks back and reflectively considers that he himself had only attempted step 2 piecemeal, and step 2 came to him piecemeal. I spoke about that yesterday. It's a step that I certainly feel like I blasted through initially, and 25 years later I can tell you that it is probably one of the more important steps for me, as it was yesterday. The events of yesterday certainly put me in a step 2 state of mind. That noted, it's something that we can approach with even the smallest willingness. It's something that we don't have to get 100% day 1. Unlike step 1, which we have to arrive at. That's something that we can't shortchange. We can't do partially. Half measures avail us nothing. I quote and paraphrase there. Step 1 is a 100% step that has to be arrived at before we can move forward. Steps 2 and 3, specifically speaking about step 3 today, is a willingness. One of the things that I love from the 12 and 12 is how Bill reminds us that World War II was upon these people. So if you consider the founding of Alcoholics Anonymous happens in 35, I believe, 34, 35, something like that, they blast through World War II at this point in time. 18 years later, at the writing of the 12 and 12, it's now 1953. World War II has come and gone. They put these principles to the test at arguably one of the most grueling moments in human history. These men were newly sober and then sent onto the battlefield to fight a world war. And they found success. They found that practicing these principles, putting these things to the test, putting these ideas to the test, working these steps in foreign lands. And he writes from, Alaska to Salerno. I mean, across the globe, these men got sober and stayed sober through some of the most grueling moments in human history. And they did it with a willingness, right? Having accepted their malady in step 1, step 2 and step 3 became steps where willingness was all that was needed. And they certainly practiced that. I made a couple other talking points here I'll try and touch on. Oh, this is a fascinating idea here. If we've accepted AA as our higher power, now is the time to trust AA to teach us the way. That, I think, kind of encapsulates the spirit of step 3. Excuse my momentary lack of brain power there. But certainly, we walk into the doors of Alcoholics Anonymous broken and beaten down, and recognizing that we need help. In that moment, we have a willingness. If we've arrived at the door and we've accepted that this is the place where we're going to find help, step 3 is the time to trust that AA is going to teach us what we need to continue on. I've made a couple of other talking points here. One of them here, all of the 12 steps require sustained and personal exertion to conform to their principles. And so, we trust to God's will. And I'm going to emphasize again, this is a God as we understand God. We each individually find faith, and steps 2 and steps 3 are the places where we will find that faith. Wherever that faith lies, if it's in the program of Alcoholics Anonymous, if it's in the tables that we're getting our knees under and the people around them, if ultimately it is in some sort of deity that we can connect to on a personal level, we find faith. And in step 3, we find a faith that works. And that's taken right from the pages right here. If I may, Bill writes here, step 3, this is the way to a faith that works. In the first 2 steps, we are engaged in reflection. We saw that we were powerless over alcohol, but we also perceived that faith of some kind, if only in AA itself, is possible to anyone. The conclusions did not require action. They required only acceptance. Step 3, indeed, is a way to a faith that works. And it's tasking us to be prepared, obviously, to work the remaining 12 steps. I think that, for me, steps 2 and step 3 are certainly those steps that we come back to almost daily when we're out here and we're struggling and we're grinding. Later on, we'll talk about step 10, and certainly that's more of a continuation step. Literally, the very first word is continued. But for me personally, in my 25 years, steps 2 and steps 3, I would take hand in hand with those continuation steps to continue to work this and to do those things necessary, that willingness that I bring to each day to hit my knees and to remind myself that I certainly need I need God in my life. I'll wrap up with this. If you got this book, go to the end of step 3, the very end, right here. Boop. Page 41. And you will fully and completely appreciate what I'm getting to here. Because the very last part of step 3 is the Serenity Prayer. And I'll read that with you. Where Bill writes, in all times of emotional disturbance or indecision, we can pause, ask for quiet, and in stillness, simply say, God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, courage to change the things I can, and wisdom to know the difference. Thy will, not mine, be done. Without question, we ourselves will run riot. And I was speaking to my wife this morning during breakfast, and I was reminding her about, and I've spoken about this in previous videos, I was reminding her about the difficulty I have transcribing this book. And I've spoken about this in other videos. This one right here. What I came to find was that this book was indeed just a prayer journal. And it was a prayer journal that I kept when I was at Great Expectations preparing to go to university. And stumbling back upon it later on when I'm trying to transcribe and get all this writing in one place, I realized that it's a prayer journal that I spent almost a year complaining to God. Begging him for financial help, begging him to teach me to budget, begging him for all of this financial help. And I was making upwards of $3,000+ a month. Just myself. My wife was working at the time, so we were bringing in plenty of money. And here I am complaining to God to teach me how to budget a paycheck. And I was so miserable during that time. And I look back on that and I'm just disgusted with myself. And so yesterday, I'm trying to do these videos, and I woke up nice and early yesterday, and it was 6 in the morning, and I'm like, here, I'm going to get after my day. And yesterday for me was one of those days where every single thing seemingly just did not go my way. From tossing a tissue into a basket and it skips out and hits the floor, and then I've got to go pick it up again, to throwing out my back and experiencing one of the worst back events I've had. The entire day just seemed against me. Certainly a day for step 2 and step 3 for me. But all I could do was return to that feeling of shaking my fist at God. And so I'm talking to my wife this morning, and I'm sharing this with her, and I wasn't shaking my fist at God. I was just frustrated that I was back in that place. And so I said to her, and I'm going to try and quote, but I'll probably paraphrase, I said to her, here I am all day just shaking my fist at God, and I wake up this morning and I'm shaking my fist at God, and I'm like, where are you? Her response to me was, hopefully he's in the Ukraine. Indeed, hopefully he's in the Ukraine. They need him far more than I do. That for me is steps 2 and 3. Those are the continuation steps. I need to bring that willingness to believe in a power greater than myself, because I'm really not that important as compared to the people in Ukraine right now in the grand scheme of things. I need to turn my will and my life over to him and trust that the plan for me, whatever that might be, I don't know, is a good plan, and I'm doing the right things that I need to do. And again, for me, it's the reminder that I'm pretty, insignificant in the grand scheme of things. There's certainly people that are in a far more dire need than I am. I've got this MacBook and all this tech, and all I got to do is hit a post button a little later on. So my responsibilities today, are pretty small by comparison. I hope that one's good, guys. I hope that one's at the very least cohesive. Again, I made more talking points than I hit, but there's step 3, We need to bring that willingness. Anyways, guys, it works if we work it. I'm going to put a tens machine on my back and some heat. One day at a time. I love you and I'm cheering you on. And I hope these things are worth it, man. I mean, I don't even know what that means. I hope they're good. I hope they're cohesive. I can't believe I'm here and I can't believe I'm doing it. And I'm grateful that I got this one under my belt and I'm going to put it in the books, man. So again, thanks a lot. I love you. I'm cheering you on. Keep crushing it, man. We're one day closer to the weekend. Take care, guys. Bye.